Hello, my friends in film fandom, wherever you may be and however you may be watching. Thank you so much for giving us just a little bit of your time. Jay, what a ride it's been, man. I
10 years coming.
I mean, I can pick some holes in this entire thing, but I mean, for the most part, they're not big holes. I mean,
there were a lot of holes in this episode, though.
From start to finish, this entire series has exceeded even my high expectations of it. I try not to go into things with high expectations like this, but I mean, this series from start to finish really did hit on all cylinders, and I can't think of anything that really took me out of it from start to finish. But I mean, what else do we do but just start breaking down episode 9 of Last of Us, the last episode of season 1, titled "Look for the Light." As always, with me, my hetero life mate Jeremy. How you doing, buddy?
Doing pretty good. As we mentioned, it's kind of cool that they bookended this season with "When you're lost in the dark, look for the light." And I was going to do this anyway on purpose, but it's hilarious that I actually bookended this review by wearing this shirt at the start and not again until now. Conveniently, it is named after the episode. Look for the light.
Yeah. So again, this entire series has kind of blown my mind. I mean, again, the pacing's been a bit odd at times, but I mean, God, I can't smash this character work at all. I mean, the character's been fantastic. The actors have been fantastic. Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey have absolutely slayed in these two roles. You know, it's interesting to think that this was very close to becoming a movie for many, many years, and it didn't work out because the people involved just didn't feel like it was going to hit the way they wanted it to hit. And it really is this reminder that sometimes patience really does pay off, that you've managed to get the right creative team, the right talent, the right everything together to create this thing. It's been absolutely fantastic from start to finish. Like I said, a few things that I might have done a little differently, but I can't say that I would have done this any better than these guys did. If I'd had decades to plan it all, I don't think that I could have done it as good as these guys did. But yeah, I mean, we may as well go right into it now. You know, obviously this episode gets started off. We find one of the biggest connections to the game. We see Ashley Johnson coming back to play Anna, the mother of Ellie. The scene opens up very tense. It's happening. It happens very quickly. It gets right into this episode. She's obviously wandering through the woods trying to get away from some infected, apparently pregnant. Obviously, those of you who are fans of the game know exactly this face. I remember her as a little girl from not Growing Pains. Was it Growing Pains? Yeah, the youngest Seaver kid from Growing Pains. But been a couple of TV shows since then, of course. But I mean, the fans will remember her face obviously as being Ellie. But sees her running through the woods trying to get away from this infected. She barrels into this house, which I feel like she was probably expecting to see some of her Firefly friends. I mean, she goes in there saying, "Hello, is anybody here?" And then goes upstairs because she's obviously trying to get away from this infected. And when she gets up there, she ends up not only having to deal with this infected person as she's in the beginning stages of labor, but she ends up eventually giving birth to who we know to be Ellie. And that whole sequence of her fighting off that clicker or that infected, stabbing her with that very famous switchblade that now is becoming kind of one of the staples of the show, recognizing she was bitten, and just kind of like how that whole scene plays itself out. I mean, what did you think of this opening sequence, Jeremy? I honestly, this series has had a lot of really great opening sequences to episodes. This one, though, kind of tops them all, in my opinion. What did you think?
Yeah, it quite literally just hit the ground running. It just got right into it. It's like you already kind of get the stakes. Like, this woman is very, very pregnant, running from infected, all by herself in the middle of the woods. So it's already tense enough as it is. And, you know, you just feel the panic with her as she tries to get away. And I don't think it's ever going to not give me chills. Like, she puts that chair up against that door and you just hear those little feet like real fast. I'm like, fuck that, dude. Can you imagine? That's stress-induced labor for sure. My God. Yeah, also your mom's not around to tell the story, but what a hell of a way to be born, you know, I guess. She may have told Marlene about it, but yeah, that's one way to come into this world, I suppose.
But who's to say that Marlene told her anything?
I don't know. I meant did Anna tell her what happened? Maybe.
Well, I'm under the impression that Marlene probably had never told Ellie that she knew her mom at all.
No.
I mean, just from their initial interactions, like in the first episode, where she's got her chained up in the room, it seemed to me like Ellie didn't really have any knowledge of Marlene before that.
It may have been kind of like a Luke Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi type thing, where she told her like, "Hey, take care of my daughter. Just kind of watch over her," and she probably thought it best to just not complicate things, as it were. So set up shop in Boston and make sure this girl gets taken to this orphanage / military camp. So she's at least taken care of, and she knows how to take care of herself with this military school she's in. So yeah, that's, and I mean, even though I knew it was coming, I knew who it was. I'm like, it's just that you hear the noises she makes, and like when she's struggling around, when she's like the few words she does say, I'm like, oh my god, it's Ellie. It's the same voice, just her normal Ashley Johnson voice is Ellie, and I'm just like, oh my god, it's here, yay! That's so cool seeing her on screen, and again, as who better than Ellie's own mom?
Yeah. Than Ellie herself from the video game, even. I mean, I really, and we'll go into this a little more detail when we do kind of our season breakdown later on, but or some other time rather. But I really love the way that they worked the voices of Joel and Ellie into this series. I know I read online that some people really wanted what's his name, who did the voice of Joel. I don't blank. Who did the voice of Joel?
Troy Baker?
Yeah, Troy Baker. I know some people had kind of criticized him online for not letting Troy Baker just play Joel.
Well, at that point, I was
kind of like, well, I mean, it doesn't really matter. But
it's like, if you see them, you're like, hey. But it'd be a little too distracting if you just had them all playing their respective characters. I'm like, again, it was fun. I mean, it was fun more to me to see more characters that I didn't even realize were in there. Like I said, like obviously Ashley Johnson, Troy Baker, and I think actually, correct me if I'm wrong, I think Marlene is actually Marlene. I think she's
the girl that played Marlene did do the voice and the mocap for
I'm like, video game. I think she's the only one, and I mean, I'm fine with that. That's pretty cool to me. There's a few others, but yeah, I like what they did.
We'll get to Marlene. We have a lot of discussing to do about her as well. But yeah, once you get deep into the scene, she gives birth to Ellie in terrible circumstances. I mean, immediately after being attacked by this infected.
Yeah.
Then you see her pull out the knife. I mean, she notices that she had been bit immediately after giving birth to Ellie. And then I don't know how the biology of it all works. I'm not a doctor. So, I mean, she notices right away. She's like, I got to cut the umbilical cord. Pulls out that now famous switchblade, cuts the umbilical cord, and blatantly lies to Marlene. Once Marlene and a couple of the other Fireflies do get there, obviously you see that there's a friendship between Ashley Johnson's Anna and Marlene. It was one of those really emotional moments where she's like, I've been bitten. She makes it very clear. She's like, I don't want to nurse her. I know she's hungry, but I don't know what the deal is. Is it going to hurt her? But then she kind of blatantly lies to Marlene and says, I got bit after she was born. And we know that not to be entirely true, but it was kind of a strange interaction, but I get it because after you see Marlene do what she does at the end of that scene, you have to wonder if she would have done the same thing to Ellie. I was
gonna say she would have very quickly dispatched Ellie as well. Yeah,
I mean, and you would have understood the logic behind it all. Yeah. I mean, even when Marlene comes in the room and Anna's got the switchblade to her own neck, and she's just like waiting for the last possible moment to where she can still protect her child. But she's like, as soon as I feel that last moment of my own humanity, I've got to do this to myself to make sure that I don't go too far and chew up my own newborn kid. That to me was all of that whole final part of that whole sequence was very emotional, very fast paced. You didn't really get a time to process it all, but at the same time, you're like, you understand it clearly. Yeah. I mean, what did you think of the way that whole opening sequence kind of finished up the second half of it?
Yeah, and like you said, that's probably how it felt. It's like you got to make a lot of really tough decisions here really fast. And I mean, I guess in a way, now that I think about it, it kind of mirrors the ending, which I'm sure we'll get to. It's like you kind of just lie to protect, and actually it happened to the same person. This parental figure lied to protect this person. It's like you see what somebody will do just to, keep her alive. It's like, I don't know, maybe in some way she knew Ellie was going to be special. Yeah, and I tried to. I mean, even watching it a second time, I was like, did she lie to her? I'm like, I think she did, because I'm like, there's no way. I'm pretty sure you got bit, and then, whoop, there goes the water log ride, and here comes Ellie. So I'm like, no, that had to have been the sequence of events, and I wonder if that maybe, because we never see this happen in the game. This is all like just for the show, which again I appreciate, because again, good way to introduce Ashley Johnson into the show, because we only hear about Ellie's mom. So I wonder if that maybe gave it a little bit of a kind of explanation to why she's immune. Maybe there's a really small window of, okay, bit, okay, out, cut, print, roll the tape. I don't know. And like my mom said, it's due to a mother's love. I'm like, yeah, you're not just gonna, you're gonna protect this child for sure.
Oh yeah, that's definitely that mother's love. That aspect plays a lot into the scene, which it was fantastic the way it was all done. Ashley Johnson did a great job playing Anna. It was again, like Troy Baker. I wish there could have been a little bit more connective tissue with those two actors to kind of be involved. But I mean, a great way to do it. And it's not like we're not going to see people from other aspects of the game involved at some point down the line. I mean,
I'm sure
we were jabbering a little bit before we went live. We all know kind of where it could go. But it was a fantastic scene. And also, I kind of like the way that it humanized Marlene a little bit at the end. She's like, because Anna tells her, I need you to take the baby and get out of here and kill me, because there's only one way this is going to go for me now, and I don't have much time left before it does. And she says, no, I'm not going to kill you. You're my friend. And obviously there's a bond between these two that I kind of want to be explained a little bit more in the future, but I don't know if it's going to make any sense now with how things ended and all that. But I mean, I still want to know a little bit more about that. Maybe, DLC, maybe. maybe we'll get some of that in the impending third game that I keep hearing we're going to be getting.
Well, no, I was like, I don't want to jump too far ahead, but like with the last scene, but also gives a little more weight to Marlene, because I remember seeing a scene somebody put out there on somewhere on the internet, and I'm like, oh wait, I think that happened in the second game, because it gets a little more involved with what was going on at the hospital, and you see a scene between Marlene and the doctor, who we did see for a brief second. We see more of that, so I'm like, it probably isn't the last time we'll actually see Marlene, but it's gonna be in a a flashback. So
yeah,
there will be a little more weight to her character to come, I assume, if they do the same way they do in the second game.
Yeah, and then Marlene at first doesn't want to be the one who puts the bullet in Anna to end her mercifully, but hands the baby off to someone else and then says, cover the baby's ears. Kind of in that moment realizing that as much as I want to not kill this person who I have who I care for a lot, I still have to do the honorable thing and give them their wish, and walks back in there. Not unlike Melanie Linsky's character, of Kathleen. It kind of mirrored that shot where she just walks right up to that doctor and pulls the trigger kind of cold-heartedly. It's like Marlene, it kind of surprised me that she made that flip in her mind so quickly, and then without showing much emotion, roll back in there. You don't see it, obviously. Again, the death happens off screen. You just hear the gunshot, and then of course the baby Ellie starts crying, which I actually thought was a great visual, thematically anyway.
Well,
decides to change her mind and go in there and put her out of her misery. The way that scene ended, I was like, for a minute I thought I might have to pause this real quick to catch a breath, because that hits hard, fast, and sets the tone for this episode.
Yeah, and it may be like just psychologically, I'm like, yeah, it's like it'd be easier to shoot somebody if they weren't looking at you, like if they had their back turned, or if you're not, if you still sit there and you're still talking to each other and you're still looking at her, it's like you wouldn't be able just to stand there and just stand still and try to shoot her. So it's like, yeah, she's like, I just have to do it, and it just got to happen. I can't hesitate. I can't think about it. Just go in there, boom, do what I need to do real fast. And yeah, like I said, I think baby Ellie is kind of feeling how we're all feeling after the end of that. I mean, it was like 8 minutes long or some shit, but my God, it either felt like it was too fast or it was just constant anxiety, really slow.
Yeah, and then after this scene ends, obviously the next scene we see is it goes right to Ellie sitting on the close-up of Ellie sitting on the back of that pickup truck. Mm-hmm. And it was interesting to me that it goes right from Anna to Ellie, kind of seeing that transition of mother to daughter. That kind of it was, to me, it worked beautifully the way they shot it all. And you also see something in Ellie. she's different now than in the first episode. I mean, the first episode, she's kind of hardcore. She's grown up in this crazy apocalyptic world, so it doesn't affect her the way that it would affect kids that maybe had experienced the world before the virus. But I mean, she is now obviously something has kind of switched inside of her. She still has the pun book. She still tries to enjoy the moments that she can enjoy, but now there is something deep down inside her that has obviously changed, and you see that from the look right now. I mean, what do you think about the way that transitioned from Anna to Ellie?
Yeah, a nice mirrored kind of parallel. You go from mother to daughter, from Ellie to Ellie, I guess, as we speak.
Yeah,
so to speak. Sorry.
Yeah, and if you're in down with the game like you are, I mean, that's also a very interesting transition.
Yeah,
you are going from Ellie to Ellie.
Yeah, I'm like that's a nice, because really that is where the game. Now that's what I'm saying. You got to remember that you just left off putting a machete through David's face about 72 times. You know, to them, Joel finding Ellie again, and then they walk off, and then like I said, it's almost like you said, like kind of take a breath, like oh my god, and it cuts to black, and then it's like spring. And that's where it opens up, is on Ellie sitting on the truck. And it's like, we're all still processing it too. And you realize, like, no, this a few months have passed, and she's probably still processing this trauma of like, you know, holy crap, all the stuff that I've been through with Joel over probably the past, it's probably been about a year now, bouncing all over the country. It's a lot. And I mean, something like that too, that she got pushed to that point. That's probably not something that you just, you know, you're going to forget about in a few months. And we mentioned like she probably hasn't really actually killed that many people before, so it's still something to take in. But yeah, it's almost like we're all just kind of doing the same thing. We're all just sitting there like zoned out, like oh my god, like what the hell's going on? Because I love how you kind of just hear Joel muffle, like he's like calling to her, and you know she just kind of snaps back like, oh hey, yeah, what's up?
Yeah, we're hearing it in the television, kind of the way she's hearing it. We're kind of tuned out with her a little bit, which I think was a very cool way of doing it.
We're all traumatized, yay.
Yeah, and we are. I mean, we were, you know, a week ago we watched her hack this guy's face up, and then now we just watched the whole ordeal of her being born, and now we're like, wait a minute. The last like 20 minutes of screen time on this show was kind of rubbing through a lot of stuff here.
Maybe the real Last of Us is the trauma we had along the way.
Yeah, but yeah, and you know when it cuts over to this scene, it's interesting too, because when we see Joel and Ellie early in this episode, we're getting two people that are very different from the people that we saw in episode 1. In this episode, Joel seems to be a little bit hopeful. You know, he talks about, I found a guitar back there. It was too smashed up to play, but maybe I can find one and maybe I can teach you some chords or something like that. He's starting to fall into the, he's starting to fall back.
Because I know.
Role. Yeah, he's starting to fall back into the fatherly role that he never got a chance. He feel it's kind of taking over where he kind of lost with Sarah when she was killed. He's kind of picking back that part back up, and he's kind of like, well, now I can kind of like finish off my being a father with Ellie. And you can see this kind of feeling like that. While Ellie, as I said, she's seen some things, and she's not nearly as happy-go-lucky as she was in episode 1. I mean, you know, the whole reliving the experience with Riley aside, I mean, the whole ordeal of the last episode, losing Tess, other things that they've experienced over the course of this journey. She's been a little broken. So now the roles have kind of flipped a little bit between the two. I thought that was really interesting. Did you get that the way I did?
Yeah, after this, we know we're gonna talk about it and we see it later. We know Joel is still, you know, Joel, but like it's funny that like she's just tuned out, kind of in this semi-traumatized state. And I was gonna say also, and you're like a 15-year-old girl, which also probably sucks in itself in a normal fucking world, you know. So, and it harkens back to that thing Joel said to her before, and I think like episode 4 maybe. It's like, you're just a kid. Like, it's not fair that you have to deal with all these kind of things already in your life. But it's kind of like, that's just the unfortunate side of it. And maybe she's now taking the time to process that. And like, yeah, Joel's, it's like we're getting to the end of the road here, quite literally. And he's just trying to, you know, be hopeful. And maybe this is how she's been the last couple of months, because he said like, you're especially quiet today. So and again, it's that little fatherly thing kicking in where he's like, oh yeah, I found a guitar. I mean, we could teach you how to play guitar, you know, or Or you can play Boggle if you want to beat me at that. That was
the whole thing about having a board game. And I'm thinking to myself, in the middle of all this, he's trying to find board games to play with this kid. I'm like, well, it makes perfect sense. It makes no sense all at the same time. You know what I mean?
It's better than just the shitty pun book. I mean, let's gotta have something else to do, I suppose, in the middle of the apocalypse. So yeah, it's just maybe trying to lighten the mood, but also like you said, he's trying to be more upbeat. He's not as reserved like he's at the beginning where that's that hilarious line when Marlene says you're taking them, and he's both Ellie and Joel were like, no, hell no, I'm not going with this guy. Like, no, they want nothing to do with it. And he's trying to keep himself closed off because ultimately he doesn't want to. It's like we know it's going to happen, but he doesn't want to have to get too attached to this kid. But now, unfortunately, you're in that situation, man, where this is, like you said, this is kind of like your continuation or second chance of having a daughter, and that's, as we're going to say, is going to be a whole mess in itself.
Yeah, but there is, though, as they're moving into Salt Lake City, we get through that scene where they're kind of talking, and then the conversation really starts to open up between the two. We see them having this bonding thing. And it ends kind of right here with the pun book, but I mean, they're walking through this, what was it, old army camp in what Joel says was probably the early days of the outbreak.
Yeah,
and
he finally, some heavy stuff.
Yeah, he finally hits her with something pretty heavy, something that I didn't know. I don't know if this hell went down in the game or not. Maybe you can shed some light on this, but he does finally say, this scar on my eye that you were asking me about, the guy who shot at me and missed was me. I was going to end it all, because you would have to imagine that most people that were dealing with this kind of situation were like, well, if this ever gets better, it's not going to be in my lifetime. Why do I want to hang out for this nonsense?
Yeah.
And so Joe made the decision that probably a lot of people made. They were like, I'm just going to end it now. And he says, but I flinched when I pulled the trigger and missed. He's like, and I don't know why that happened. And it does kind of give us a window into his soul a little bit. Yeah. And you kind of wonder why he didn't either just do it again, or what maybe epiphany he had once that happened. He was like, maybe there is something I need to go on for, because at this point he has no idea about Ellie. He doesn't. I mean, this is probably,
she ain't even alive yet.
This may have been before she was born.
Oh yeah.
It's like I don't know at what point after the outbreak if this happened. So maybe he thought that after a couple of years this might bowl over. But I mean, he, for whatever reason, he decides not to. It ends up here, and there is that nice little moment between them where he does pretty much say, you saved me. You helped me find that part of my heart that I thought that died with Sarah. I thought that was a fantastic interaction between the two, because I couldn't help but remember back to when he looks at her and says, "You're cargo," in such a cold voice. You're trying to tell this 14-year-old kid who probably it seems like maybe not from the very beginning, but it seems like early on, Ellie really wants to love him. She really wants to have a father figure like him.
Yeah. And
he's just like, no, you're just cargo to me. You're not a person. You're a box I need to take from point A to point B.
Yeah, you're a job.
That's what you are to me. And it's transitioned a lot from him from that point to where now he's like, you're not just cargo, you saved me. What a great conversation that was to really show how complete this relationship has become. What do you think of that?
Yeah, and that's the whole point of this journey, the whole point of this game. The whole point of the series too is getting, seeing the arc of these two characters come to fruition finally in this scene. I don't think that was part of the game. I mean, that kind of floored me a little bit. I'm like, oh shit, but when I thought about it, I'm like, this makes sense. Like he said, this is like the second day of the outbreak. Sarah just died, the day before on his birthday of all damn days. And again, he probably feels like there's nothing. I just lost my daughter. I don't know if I assume Tommy was there, but he's like, what else do I have?
Well, this may have been after Tommy had taken off. because at some point he leaves to go chase whatever firefly dreams they were promising.
He's out chasing fireflies for real.
Yeah.
But it's, I'm not saying I know, but it's like, I've heard like, it's not exactly an easy thing to do that to yourself. There's a lot of mental gymnastics. And I know he even sees that's the thing is that he's like, I felt ready. Like I knew this is what I wanted to do. And it is still it's just probably a, almost involuntary reaction. Like he said, I flinched. I couldn't do it. And I don't know if maybe that is that thing. He said that something might've clicked. And he just thought, I can't do this again. I can't try and do this again. And maybe that was kind of his kind of his wake up call. But I mean, obviously his, like you said, his full healing didn't come until, unfortunately 20 years later, when this kid comes into his life, over the past year. Yeah, the only thing that might have been a little different was, I think I remember in that part of the game when you find the little camp, and like Joel talks about it, I think they showed it in the very beginning. You kind of see it like on the shelf. There's this picture of Joel and Sarah. Sarah's in her soccer uniform. She's holding up a trophy. Like, he's got his arm around her. He's all smiling. She's just like, yeah, with the soccer ball under her arm and the trophy. It comes back when they first find Tommy. Tommy said, like, it was a little different. I forgot. I just played through that part of the game. They had actually only been there for a few weeks, not like 7 years or some weird, whatever it was in the show. He's like, I went back home to Austin and I tried to find some stuff that, the house, everything was gone, but I found some stuff. He tries to give Joel that picture, and he even just kind of goes, I'm good. I'm good. So he's still hurt by it, but in that moment, like, you finally get back there and you still haven't been there since. Ellie stops him and says, hey, Maria gave me this. And he finally does accept it. He takes it. He takes the picture. So there is still an emotional moment there, but they didn't go with that. But all the same, that's still a gut punch of a scene, which of course needs to be followed by shitty puns to lighten the mood.
Yeah. Then they do make their way into this building, and in a scene very reminiscent to the game. I actually watched this today, a couple of videos that kind of equate what happened in this episode to the events of the game. Yeah. In that scene where she kind of like, she sees something that gets her attention and just kind of drops the ladder. She's supposed to be dropping out of Joel, and it then takes off and kind of gets him really worried. We see this scene. This is honestly, I thought this scene was going to be a much more, it was very intense anyway. I mean, I thought this was going to be one of those scenes where he was looking for her and probably killing a bunch of people. But, they end up in this building. I love the way that these red tarps kind of gave everything a menacing look, when in reality, the situation wasn't like that.
It's tense, yeah.
But she goes to drop the ladder down. Sees something that gets her attention and just drops the ladder and kind of leaves him in the lurch. He finally gets up there and chases her down. Very reminiscent to the game. I've actually seen video clips of the game being played like this.
Oh, yes.
And then when he finally catches up to her, we get that scene that I know you were waiting for, and probably a lot of people that had played the game that were watching this had been waiting for. We finally get the giraffe scene where she rolls out to this big expanse, and there's a giraffe just kind of chewing on some leaves or whatever and feeding. And that to me is one of the most important scenes of this episode, because this is one of the most hopeful. This is one of the most happy scenes of this entire series so far. Mm-hmm. And you know that there's more chaos and unhappiness coming, but this is what kind of sets the tone for all of that. Again, another scene that kind of goes hand in hand, dialogue-wise. The next several minutes of the episode goes hand in hand with what we saw in the game, which was just amazing. The depth that you get into these characters' heads and their hearts and how they see what's going on around them was just fantastic. I mean, obviously, I know this is a scene that you were waiting on. What did you think of the way this whole scene played out?
It's like I already knew what was going on, but I love like you said, like you've seen it, but like it's played in the right way. It's like you don't know what she saw. Like, I mean, she's a kid, but like, oh shit. She seems like, oh holy crap, and just drop, doesn't even think about it, drops the fucking ladder, and Joel's still down there, and he's like, the hell, hey, which that's more so like the second part of the that scene in the game. Like, you're walking down the road talking about the guitar, and then you get through the camp, and then you get up into that building, and she sees it. Yeah, drops the ladder, and it's like, yeah, it worries the shit out of Joel, because I mean, yeah, she is just a kid, It's like, damn it, and I love it. I didn't even notice that, like the tone of like the red tarps and the sunlight coming in, it makes it seem like, oh shit. But like when it comes around that corner and it opens up into that hole in the building, and then it's just this serene image of the nature outside, and also, well, here's this giraffe just doing its best Jurassic Park impression, which if you don't see the parallel between them feeding the Brachiosaurus in the tree and then like this, it's like that's kind of what it is. It's just
I saw that too. As a matter of fact, I was watching New Rockstars did a video. That's what they said, is they were just like this. It's very reminiscent of that scene when they're just feeding the Brachiosaurus. Like you take that minute away from the danger of it all, and you just kind of enjoy this one little moment of nature. Yeah, and you get something real nice, and you can always make the joke as soon as they go up there and they see the rest of them. It's like, oh, they do move in herds, and there they go. But yeah, it's a nice.
even if you know, it's like you just want to stay in that moment. You want to stay hopeful and stay in this innocent moment of them kind of just bonding with this creature. And it's been sprinkled throughout the game, and it's also in the show too. I've noticed it a few times that the giraffe is always there. It is.
Oh yeah.
It is quite literally that symbol of hope, that little bit of something that's still there in this world, that's in all this chaos and all this darkness, and that's the light you're looking for, is the giraffes. It's, and like I said, you can tell he's having the dad moment. He's looking at her, just giggling and having fun with this giraffe. And then, like you said, when they go up to the balcony, it's the same shot, the same way, it's the same dialogue, where, like you said, they have a little back and forth of, Ellie knows that, like, this is my purpose, like, this is what we've all been doing, and after all that, it can't just be for nothing. And Joel's trying to weigh the option out of, like, well, we don't have to do this, we can just, we found something better, we could go live with Tommy and he have a whole town that's secure, it's got lights, it's got food, water, it's got walls, people protect it, and it's all it's a commune, it's communism, that's what it is. It's a good thing, apparently. In small doses.
Yeah. Small doses.
It's in small doses, not getting bigger, you might start having problems. But yeah, and that's what she tells him, like, no man, we do this all the way. Like,
yeah, and of course Tex came in with a big spoiler. He says, I love the reveal scene of Joel having a one-nighter with Ellie's mom and finding out he was the father all along, and Ellie's midichlorian count was so high that she wasn't vulnerable to the outbreak.
Yeah, then she started turning green, having little long ears and shit. Yeah,
And then she used the Force to throw some people away so they get away.
Yeah, then Joel gets some really sick armor.
Hey, look, crossover opportunities. Crossover opportunities is all I'm saying.
You could.
But but you did mention that one scene where, again, the dialogue ripped completely from the game for the most part of this scene. For one, I love how they went from the ominous red of that tarp to when they first walk out to where they see the giraffes. You get the blue of the sky and the green of the foliage, and just from the color tones alone, you have an immediate switch of your mood switches immediately. Especially the people who are familiar with it, when you understand the scene that you're getting, that you're
nice
walking
reveal.
into, it was a nice reveal. But yeah, I love what she says there. I mean, I've been thinking. No, I'll say that for later. But yeah, I love the way that her little monologue right there, where she says everything that you've done, everything that we've done, everything that we've sacrificed and lost, has to be for something. And that plays into the question we're going to ask later of, did Joel do the right thing? But I think that was a lot of setup there. It's like she, even as this 14 or 15-year-old child, she's grasping the bigger picture.
Yeah, starting to understand.
It was a grown-up moment for her character, I thought, which was very good. I mean, that whole scene from start to finish was fantastic. The dialogue and the back and forth between the two. Did you agree?
Yeah, and it even ends in the game. Like, Joel even just kind of stands there for a second. Like, she goes like, yeah, like, let's go, and walks through the door, and he even still stands there for a second to kind of like take it all in, kind of also thinking about, like, he's still seeing this bigger picture too of, well, we could just not do this, or that's probably been weighing on his mind this whole past year. Like, this is what I gotta do, and this is what our end game is. So, it's like, also you see this kind of thing, we can't have nice things in this show. So it's just, that's what makes it hurt all the more when you have an innocent moment with just feeding a giraffe just to happen to be poking his head through a second story window that you're in, to talking about some heavy stuff about, like, this is that's the setup, is that we're talking about possibly saving humanity here, and that's what this has all been for. Like, that's maybe to her being 15, she's like, it's this or this. Like, what are we even talking about, really? I don't know. Maybe Joel's having a little more complicated time with it.
Probably more than he's showing anyway, because he does.
That's how he does.
He does kind of have this happy-go-lucky thing about him for the first half of this episode anyway, before everything kind of goes awry. But yeah, he seems to be at least dealing with it better now in the first half of this episode.
Yeah.
But moving on, they leave the giraffes behind and they start to move deeper into the city. And obviously, she pulls out the pun book. I thought it was pretty. I thought it was pretty funny. The joke that she made about the virus joke that she made or something like that.
People are making jokes about the apocalypse like there's no tomorrow. I'm like,
she's a little too soon.
Yeah, that one is in the game, and she does go, that's too soon. I'm like, right.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty funny. And again, we get this great moment of levity between the two. And he at some point he was talking about how Sarah. Oh no, that's at the end of the episode. That's when he's
at the end.
But yeah, I mean, you obviously get this one moment like that you haven't gotten at all in the series where they're friends. Like, this was that moment where he clearly doesn't see her as cargo anymore. He sees her as a person that he cares very deeply for. He wants to protect. She sees him the same way. This is the one moment where they take a minute to be family. And then, of course, it all gets shattered by somebody dropping a flashbang at their feet.
Yeah.
They all get knocked out, or Ellie gets knocked out. Joel is trying to come around for the percussion of this thing, and then he gets the rifle butt to the face. Yeah. And then he wakes up to seeing a familiar face, which kind of made me wonder. I was like, wait a minute. You got there just fine, but you could have just waited and taken Ellie your damn self instead of giving her to the strange guy who you didn't trust anyway. But I'm like, okay. Plot hole, but whatever. I turn my brain off and just believe what you tell me.
She was shot, and again, like you always say, it's one line of dialogue. I mean, she does kind of say, like, look, I even had like 5 guys protecting me, and they all died or something. She's like, and I almost died myself trying to do this. I'm like,
yeah, she did mention like losing half of her travel party on the way.
I'm like, man, maybe you just suck at this because this is like the like Lord of the Rings thing where you got 2 little hobbits who you wouldn't think are going to be the 2 that take this ring to Mount Doom and destroy it and save the whole of Middle Earth. I'm like, yeah, but you have like a whole army that you're fighting with, and you still couldn't do this. And how did these 2 just pretty much do the impossible? Yeah. I don't know. Whatever, plot armor, and we spent the whole time with him, and it was a good time, kind of. Yeah, what did Ellie say? It has its ups and downs. Can't deny the view.
I was glad to have this journey with Joel and Ellie. I probably wouldn't have enjoyed the journey with Marlene as much. But, we get there, and this is where things start to get real heavy. As Joel comes around, obviously, one of the first things he's going to ask about is Ellie. Yeah. And Marlene starts to give him a little bit more about the situation. She explains to him that they believe it's possible that whatever makes her immune to the cordyceps virus is probably growing on her brain. It tricks the virus into thinking that she is the cordyceps so it doesn't attack her. And what this all comes down to is they're going to have to take out her brain and do whatever it is they do to make whatever this is. And it's going to mean that Ellie is no longer alive. And Joel, of course, does not like this idea.
It's going to kill her. Yeah.
He tries to force his way out of there. And, Marlene and her backup obviously aren't going to let him. So she says, I'm sorry it's got to be this way, but you're going to go ahead and go now because, there's stuff that's happening right now. She's already in surgery.
Job's done.
This is already happening. So thanks for getting her out here. And we're sorry that we're sorry you got attached to the cargo, but this is the way it's going to be. And
suck.
Yeah. And then Joel, obviously on his way out, kind of loses his shit.
Oh,
he does what Joel does. He takes out the 2 guys that were escorting him to the edge of town, gets their guns, and goes full fucking John Wick. On everybody in this hospital. Look, I don't know if you noticed, like the official runtime for this episode was something like 47 minutes or something like that. That was with the little stuff that little short thing they put at the end of these episodes.
Yeah.
So I mean, this episode was like a Mandalorian episode. It was like 30 minutes. And it happens real
it
fast.
Just
bang, bang. And it like you don't really get much of a breather in this episode.
No.
And from here on out, it's just balls to the wall. It's, Joel learning the reality of the situation, trying to figure out a way. You can see him as they're walking him out. He's kind of like looking around. He sees that the surgery center is on whatever floor, so he's making a note of that. You can see him kind of waiting for the time in his head. And then when he gets in the stairwell, he obviously sees an advantage. So he takes out the one guard and then takes out the other one, takes their guns, and then just blowing right through everybody that got in his way. I mean, it's... this was the first time, because it seems like whenever Joel's found himself in a position where he's had to kill somebody, it's never been because he necessarily, obviously not, he didn't want to. It was just a matter of survival. But this time, that was not part of the equation. He was like, if I see anybody, they're getting killed. Like I am not the survivalist in me is in full control right now. There is no empathy right now. There is no there is no humanity in me right now.
Don't care who you are.
I am getting to Ellie, and if I see you on the way there, you're not going to survive. And he just methodically, almost like the Terminator in the first Terminator movie, just down one hallway into the other, just taking guys out, swapping guns as he has to, in a very cool way, by the way. Something they don't do a lot in movies anymore.
I was saying in a very video game way, right?
Yeah, in a very video game way, which is fitting. But just rolls right through. I mean, the sheer brutality. And the funny thing is you kind of get the audio is kind of muted too. So it's like he's not even hearing it. He is so zoned in on get to Ellie that you're kind of you're in his mind with him. You're not hearing the gunshots. You're not really feeling anything. It's just like a dull hum, light gunshots. You kind of hear they're faded, and just guys falling down one way or the other. Just a brutal display. I don't know. What do you think of that whole scene?
Well, I don't want to say having, actually lived it. I mean, having lived it, having played that. Oh my God. I don't know if I really knew that was going to happen, but like, that's your guns blazing, for the Alamo or whatever, whatever phrase you want to put on it. That's your, that is your goal, is just get through anyone who stands in your way of you getting to this child. And I like how they did do that. It seemed kind of slow motion-y a little bit, and it was kind of muted, and it's very focused, and I appreciated that. And like you said, him going through, he runs through a little Ruger Mini 14, goes to an AR-15, and he finally gets down to just that pistol. And I think, if I remember, the sound does cut right back in as soon as he gets into the surgery room. After having gone through pretty much everybody in this hospital. It was a little bit longer sequence in the game. It's a little more, as it probably would have been, but it's just to kind of give you a little more of a depth of it. Like, good God, you're gonna it's you against this entire hospital.
The one that really got me is the guy who lays his gun down. And
the guy that surrendered. Yeah.
It's like Joe just, without any feeling, without any emotion in his face at all, just pulls the trigger and puts him down.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, that is Joel. That is the evil Joel taking over for a minute. It was that kill to me. It's like, I understood the rest of them. They were in a shootout. So if it's me or them, then they get shot. But the guy putting his gun down and was like, dude, you do whatever. I'm going to let you walk right by me. And Joe's like, no, without a word. No. Without the guy pleading for his life, without anything, Joe just cap, and not a blink, and not an expression of remorse, not an expression of, oh, I'm sorry, I don't have any other way to do this. Just without any explanation at all, just caps the guy down. And I was like, wow.
I think that's even how, even when you're playing it, that's how you feel. You feel no, like you said, don't care who you are, you're in my damn way, and you're gonna die. You're gonna die over me getting to this kid. So. Yeah, and I'm I think they added that in. It was in the second game a little more, but I think they even added to the remake of part 1. There are some that they'll go down and they won't completely die. They'll drop their gun and they'll drop down to their knees and they'll say okay, you got me, okay. And I'm like, no, you just shot at me 3 seconds. Fuck you, boom. You know what I mean? It's a weird. I know it's a video game. I'm like, man, it's just no remorse, like you said, just. Doesn't matter. And obviously, as we're going to see, it literally does not matter who you are. Again, you're in the way. This is the Joel train coming down the tracks, and you were on the middle of the tracks.
Yeah.
You're going to get splattered.
Yeah. Then, of course, he makes his way into the surgery room. You see Ellie laying there ready for whatever procedure they were going to run on her. And the doctor and nurses, they all react like, who the hell are you? What the hell are you doing here? You got to
right
here. And Joel's like, no, she's going with me. Unhook her from all that shit. She's going to live. And again, the doctor doesn't get much of a chance either. He tries to kind of muscle up on Joel a little bit, but we know how that went for him. He took one in the dome.
He brought a scalpel to a gunfight. I mean, come on.
I didn't think it was funny he reached for the scalpel. I'm like, really? It's like, you just did a better chance just kind of like trying to reason with him. But I mean, really.
Well, I don't think there was any reasoning with him either way. But yeah, I mean,
true.
That was your first. I don't know, man. That's a tiny blade.
But obviously, he puts that doctor down with a quickness that makes it very clear to the nurses. One of which we'll point out as to who that nurse, one of those nurses probably is there in a second.
She important.
But they unhook Ellie, and he, of course, he scoops Ellie up, much like the hero, gets her out, And then, and I couldn't get any other pictures of kind of like the last few minutes of the episode, which really pisses me off.
Actually,
please, if you work for HBO, please let me take screen grabs again.
Actually, you know what? So that's a really good picture. Now I see it. You know what? That mirrors exactly him holding Sarah from the first episode.
Yeah.
That's almost like that was like shrouded in darkness. You couldn't really see. You just see the blood on him. He's holding his like now lifeless daughter. To this, where like you had that light shining on both of them. Her, she's not dead, but she's unconscious, and him again now holding on to his, I guess his second daughter now. It's a very. I just realized that's a very nice parallel. If you find a picture, if you have a picture of like the one with Sarah, like that's a good. That's kind of a full circle right there, honestly.
I'm pretty sure I just deleted all my other stuff. Episode 1, but
if you've been watching, you know what I mean.
Yeah, if you've been watching this far, then you know. But yeah, it is an interesting parallel. The show's full of them, a lot of interesting parallels, especially the last several episodes. But he gets out, and then as he's trying to get her down to the car to get away, they get down to the garage. They find this car that the battery's charging. Of course, they're going to steal and get away. Marlene apparently figured out that's where they were going, and the conversation between the two of them. To me, there was only one way it was going to end.
You knew where it was going. We just saw him do that.
I mean, and Marlene does the best she could in the situation. She's trying to explain to him. She's like, "Look, you can undo this. Take her back upstairs, and the old problem that Spock likes to put to people for all the Star Trek fans out there is, does the good of the one outweigh the good of the many?" That's a problem.
This is what you
get that question a lot, kind of in a lot of different ways, in a lot of different places, but. To Joel, I mean, yeah, he's not going to lose this again. He's 100% willing to live in this shitty world with Ellie than to live in a world that doesn't have to deal with this virus without her.
He spent all that time, like he said. I mean, like Ellie tried to tell him, like, I guess time heals all wounds, and he's kind of like, no, that wasn't what it is. So after all this time he spent, with that weighing on his mind, and something finally turned that around for him, and it's in this little girl of Ellie. It's like, man, it's like he finally got, I guess, kind of his peace with it. And I guess a second chance. And it's like I'm not about to lose that again. And that's the thing. You don't know it's like, even if you don't get it, like Joel even says, like, oh, cordyceps grows in the brain. Like, and you're like, oh shit. Yeah, this is going to kill her. And again, for something you don't even know is actually even going to work in the first place. Like, this could not work, but either way this spins, she's still going to die. And yeah, and I think they said it in the bonus at the end, like, that's the easiest decision Joel ever made. He's like, no, I'm not losing her. If that's what it means, like you said, if it means living in this, shitty apocalypse, that's like she said, I'll follow you anywhere. It's like, if it's the two of us against the world, so be it.
Yeah, the conversation between him and Marlene, you can tell by the look on his face that he's not having it.
He's still in rage mode. Yeah.
Yeah. And Marlene, to her credit, she's like, look, I agree this sucks and nobody likes the way this is going to play out. But again, she answers that question of the good of the one versus the good of the many in one direction. He answers it the other. Neither one of them are wrong.
She's like, what are you going to do then? And it's like, yeah, but I don't know.
Yeah, and the crazy thing about it is neither one of them are wrong.
No, that's what makes it so great.
There's so much logic behind both their perspectives that you're just kind of like waiting. You're like, I agree with both of you. I don't know who I'm going to side with, but only one of you is walking away from this. I'm just waiting for this to happen.
It's even like what she says when she's in the room with Joel when he first wakes up. She's like, I was there when she was born. I've watched over her whole life. Like, I do understand. And I was kind of like a little bit like, do you though? You're really not her mom, and you apparently didn't really have a whole lot to do with her life. Just, I guess, kind of got her in the right place to be. But I'm like, I guess if that was something you were tasked with now over these last 15 years of you trying to run your rebellion movement, but also make sure this girl stays alive, just as a favor to a childhood friend. I don't know. I guess you would understand to a degree, but I'm like, I don't know. It seems like the connection with Joel it's a little different. It's not like Marlene and Ellie went across the country. That would have been a different game. I don't know. Someone make a what if of The Last of Us, and it's Marlene instead of Joel. I don't know. How would that play out?
Yeah, I also love how this conversation with him and Marlene is kind of intercut with the conversation in the car as they've gotten away, as they've driven away, where Joel blatantly tells the beginning of this first lie to Ellie. He says,
"Oh boy,
well, they actually had other people like you, and the cure didn't work, so they're not going to try anymore." And just as Joel tells Ellie, who's still wearing her hospital gown, so clearly he has a reason to be skeptical. Because we cut back and see Joel obviously pulling the trigger on Marlene and putting her and wounding her at first. But then it cuts back to them again after some conversation in the car as they're driving away. And you see, not only did he shoot Marlene to get away, he walks up to her after putting Ellie in the car and she says, don't do this. There's so much, whatever the conversation was, I forget. And he just says, you're always going to come after her, and then just puts one right between her eyes.
Yeah.
That is there's stuff that he did in the hospital previously, running through there and John Wick and everybody the way he did. That moment was the one where he seemed totally conscious of what he was doing. That wasn't just blind rage or bloodlust or him protecting. Well, it was him protecting Ellie, but it was so much more than that. He knew what he was doing. He had calculated this shit in his mind, and he was like, if I don't put you down and eliminate you right now, you're going to come after her again, and I can't have that. I have to protect her. Because she knows nothing about Jackson. She knows nothing about where they could go at that point. But he's like, I can't take the chance of you being out there in the world at this point. And then just guns her down and executes her and just eliminates her from the equation. But it was such an insane way for that whole thing to play itself out. It's like very, very crazy. I don't know. How do you quantify what he did over the course of that 5 minutes of the show?
And this is why this game has been talked about for the last 10 years. Like you said, no one's really wrong or right in this situation. And that's hell, now that I think about the second game, it's a different age-old thing, but it's still like no one's right or wrong. And this is, you can argue the morality of it, to the end of time, but what happened, and that honestly, that little bit there at the end, it's like, again, it's still kind of a cold, calculated Joel. It's like, there's nothing you're going to say to me that's going to make me, I know you're going to sit here and you're bleeding out. You're going to say like, yeah, sure, I won't come after you. And it's like, I don't believe that, boom. It reminded me of Walking Dead. Remember when they took the cannibals in the church, took them down onto their knee? And the guy tells Rick, like, I will never see you again. We'll never cross paths with you again. I swear to you. And then it's like no hesitation. Rick just goes, but you'd cross somebody's path, right? You do this to anybody. And I'm like, shit. It's like, no, you got to go. So it's like, I can't be having you out here doing this, especially like Joel said, I can't have you following me anymore. Cause I'm not about to do that again. It's like Captain Jack Sparrow. Did everybody see that? Because I won't be doing it again.
No doubt. But that whole scene was insane. And then the other part of the aftermath is when they've taken the car, they've driven as far as they could. It finally craps out, but they're only really I think Joel says it's like a 5-hour hike back to Jackson and to where his brother is. And it was such a deep ending to this insane episode and to what has been a relatively insane season. Joel and Ellie are hiking, kind of making normal small talk. This is what he's like. He's opening up about Sarah, the kind of person she was, talking to Ellie, saying things like, you guys would have liked each other, blah, blah, blah. And just carrying on kind of like normal. But like I said, even in the beginning of the episode, Ellie's a little quiet, a little despondent, a little off. And so as they walk up over the hill, they look down on Jackson, and they're right there where they were wanting to go. She kind of tells Joel very unprompted the truth about the first person she had to kill, and to nobody's surprise, it had to be her friend Riley, played by Storm Reed back in episode 7. We know the story. They both got bitten. They both waited it out, but only one of them turned. So Ellie says that once she turned, I had to kill her, and that was something that obviously had been kind of weighing on her heart, since that happened. And I think she finally felt comfortable with someone enough to say it out loud. I mean, she could have told anybody a long time ago, but she didn't feel comfortable with any of the people that she had knew. She finally has hit this point with Joel where she feels comfortable, obviously, because, not only did Joel protect her so long to even get her to these fireflies that were supposed to help kind of save the planet, but then he well, he got her out of there with whatever she thinks happened. But that to me was pretty important too, because remember I mentioned a couple of times that I thought it was interesting that we didn't see Riley's ending, that episode just kind of ends where it ends. Well, it doesn't really see what happens to Riley, but I was like, I think at some point that's going to have to come up, and it came up. I thought it was a pretty good time for it to come up. What did you think of her revelation to Joel about what she had to do for Riley?
Yeah, it's like if we're all going to just come out here and talk about our feelings, so that's kind of a good as time as any between these two people that, like you said, over this whole journey have now become as close to one another as they have. So like where she trusts Joel enough to tell him that, because like if you think back when he says to her face, like you don't have no idea what loss is. It's like she doesn't say that, but it's like I think he's still in that mindset of like, well, you're a kid, like what could you have already gone through in your life? And unfortunately, she already had to deal with something like that, losing her best friend in the brutal manner that she did. And again, like you said, her having to be the one to still kill her friend. She didn't know she was immune. So it's like if you're waiting and she turned first, and I think I mentioned it before. I'm like, I wish they would have included the line from the game that also hits pretty hard when she talks about, she turned and she's like, and I'm still waiting my turn. It's like, damn, like. That's got to be weighing on your mind too when you realize, oh, I'm actually not going to die. That sucks. It's like immortality. Yeah, it sounds great, but it would also kind of suck if you could like never die. That would suck. But in this context, I think she probably thinks, wow, I'd rather have just gone out in this world with my best friend, and she didn't really get to have that, unfortunately.
Yeah, and it's important because it would turn out to be kind of the what would be the last bit of truth to be told between these two characters, at least for this season. Yeah. Like Ellie may have assumed Joel sharing the word of his own suicide attempt was his most personal, secretive thing for such a macho, quiet, impersonal person we've seen over the course of the series. That was actually quite a share. So I'm curious as to why. I think this is something that will come up in the future of the series, but kind of for no reason, she looks at him and says, "Is what you said about the Fireflies true? That they."
She's probably been thinking about that this whole car ride.
They got attacked by whoever. They found out that you weren't the only one. Blah blah blah. Is what you said about the Fireflies true? And it was staggering. This is the moment that took my breath away. I was holding my breath watching this dialogue, and I'm like, "What are you going to say, Joel?" Because I'm trying to put myself in his shoes. And it's like I could sit here right now without having cordyceps trying to eat me or anybody I know and say that I would like to tell a kid the truth, but I'm like, I don't know. I'm not in this position. I can't tell you that right now. And Joel says the one thing he can say, which is a blatant lie, one that he can't come back from. He says, yes. No. And he looks her right in the eye and says, yes, it's 100% true, everything. And I couldn't help but notice the look on Ellie's face. It's like, she knows that it's not true, but she doesn't know what is true. She just knows that Joel is lying. And I just, the look on her face is like, I trust this person. I love this person. I care about this person. This person has tried so hard to protect me, but this person is lying to me right now. What does that mean? It was just the look on her face was phenomenal. I mean, and that's where the episode ends. That's where the season ends. That's
where the game ends.
And I was like, and I remember just sitting there for a minute when this ended. I was like, Jesus. I was like,
yeah. It's almost like you still have the time. You're still in that conversation. You're like, that's it.
I'm like, can I please have episode 10? Can you cobble together some cut footage and give me a 10th episode? I mean, come on.
You gotta wait a couple of years for the second game to come out.
But yeah, it was it was such an amazing moment, such an amazing dialogue, such an amazing conversation between these two characters. I couldn't wrap my head around the way it all ended. And I even watched it again this morning. I woke up and I was still just kind of like, I was watching that last like 3 minutes of the show, like with holding my breath, like knowing what was going to be said, thinking that it might be different. That he might be like, oh, okay, but
playing the game, I was like, I want it to be different, but I know it's not going to be.
Yeah, such a fantastic ending. I mean, it leads to the question a lot of people are asking, and I'll pose it to you, Jeremy. Oh, did he do the right thing? Was lying to her, was it the right thing to do in that moment?
Oh, I thought you meant like the whole, I'm going to murder a whole hospital, get you out of here, and lie to your face about it.
Well, like I said, I mean, it's like both him and Marlene's perspective in that moment, you can't disagree with either one of them. They're both perfectly logical. They're both not quite. I mean, neither one of them are particularly ethical, but I mean, when you're in this situation, you just have to do. I mean, you have to ask yourself: is the good of the one outweigh the good of the many? And you can't really go wrong with either direction. There's a valid argument for both those sides. So it's like who? The question is who ends up winning the day.
That's what makes it so great, that it's not just a clear-cut, like, right or wrong, black and white situation. It's like you could sit here and argue for the next 10 years about, well, was this right or wrong? I mean, it's not like I could say that I know what I would do, but I'm like, I'd like to think like I was kind of more on the side of like maybe in the taking a step back to the hospital. I'm like, I think he probably did what I've expected him to do, what I would probably expect anyone to probably do. Yeah, to make the decision to just say no, I'm keeping her alive, and then whatever that takes is going to have to happen. And then I think they mentioned it later. Like, I mean, I was going to ask you this too, because I'm like, I can't relate because I don't have kids. I don't know you have that extra layer of like to this argument that I don't have. Like they say, like it's like a parent lying to protect their kid. It's like, nah, the world's fine. It doesn't have it's not scary and shit. And that's in today's world. This is without cordyceps and shit running wild. You know what I mean? So, man, to him to straight face tell her that, it's like I think he knew too. As soon as he shot that first guy, it's like this is what I'm going to have to commit to, and like this is the story. That's your story, and you're going to have to stick to it now. And like I said, even if that means you're going to have to tell this girl now, knowing that if she ever found out the truth, it's gonna hurt. But what do you do? I don't know what else you could really say to her. And like you said, that look on her face, it's almost like, you know, she doesn't quite believe him. Because I mean, to her, she's like, oh, I was in there, and then all of a sudden, what the hell? Now I'm in this car with you. Like, there's that disconnect where she has no idea what happened, and she just has to take Joel's word for it. And well, not gonna spoil. I think she asked me like, well, does she ever find out? I'm like, guess she'll have to see season 2. Guess you have to play the second game. I mean, because yeah, that's a big question. Because again, you're in that conversation like, oh my god, what's he gonna tell her? And when you're just like, holy shit, he just lied right to her face. And when you see her go like, okay, and it cuts to black, and then the roll the credits, I'm like, what? After all that, holy crap.
Yeah,
it's not, you can't be completely truthful in life. I guess that's unfortunately, really, that's so being truthful to a fault like that. I mean, I don't know, maybe that was the best thing he could have done in that situation, that again, that he cares and loves this girl so much that he's willing to just lie to her and murder a whole hospital for her. So hope that doesn't come back to bite you in the ass later.
Well, maybe. Well, I mean,
season 2 gonna be wild.
Well, you know, and we'll talk about what potentially could be upcoming here in just a minute. But
I can tell you,
yeah, honestly, even as a father, having 3 kids of my own, 4 kids.
Like, what do you think? Yeah,
I honestly I don't know. Again, I can sit here and tell you, because I know that when my kids come up to me and ask me questions I don't really want to have to answer, I try to reward their curiosity, their desire to learn the truth about whatever that's on their head. I try to reward that by giving them honesty, by not panicking or flipping out and whatever. I try to be cool and say, hey, this is the reality of this. Do with what you will. Now, do I try to polish up parts of it? Sure. Do I try to word parts of it a certain way? Sure. But I try not to lie.
I mean, Joel didn't completely lie. He's like, did people get hurt?
Well, I mean,
people got hurt.
Yeah, people got hurt. But I mean, yeah, you can say people got hurt, but it's like,
it's still part of the fabrication.
She doesn't know that he's the one that went through and murked everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, because
he doesn't even answer her when he chats about Marlene too. He just kind of goes, yeah, well, we're going home.
Yeah. So it's like, that's why I think that she had that look on her face to end the episode. It's like she knows this is bullshit. It's like she may not know that it's bullshit. But she certainly knows that he's not being honest about something. So
that's going to fester in her mind for about the next 5 years.
Just looking at it right now, standing here as we are talking about this, I would imagine she's like, why is he either A, lying, or B, not telling me all the truth? And that's significant. And I think that's obviously something that's going to play into their relationship and where we're going to find them at once we do end up getting a second season, which I think will be sooner rather than later. I think
so.
Pedro Pascal said a long time ago that he was filming that he did Mandalorian, and I think he said he was doing some other project that he was going to go. That they were going to planning on doing filming season 2. So hopefully we'll see it within the next 18 months. But I mean, I don't know.
I hope.
I don't know what his work schedule is right now. I don't know what he's got scheduled out. So hopefully it's going to be soon. But
yeah,
because they're not hard shoots. I mean, yeah, what, couple months, maybe 10 weeks to shoot the entire season. But yeah, I don't know. It's
because they did this in Canada when it was kind of cold. So
yeah,
the set. I mean, you could do sets. Something I noticed that they did, or somebody mentioned, a big cataclysm of this too is that Ellie can't swim. So obviously there's kind of puzzly parts of the game where there's water and it's deep enough where you'd have to swim, but you have a child who can't swim. So like, what do? You have to, find a wood pallet to get her on and just, doggy paddle her across the way, which isn't always as easy as it sounds.
Well, it's clear that we're going to open the next season in Jackson, so maybe they'll teach her how to swim.
Well, yes, but my point is, like, in the second game, we spend time in mostly in Seattle. So I'm like, if you know the weather in Seattle, it sucks.
A lot of rain.
Rain. So what does a rainy city with no one to maintain it in 20 years do? It falls the hell apart and it is flooded. So that's a lot of what is going to be was the second game, and part of what a lot of the season 2 is going to be. So I'm like, this is going to be like warm weather, probably constant raining and a lot of water stunts and stuff like that. Because it takes place the majority in Seattle, Washington. So it's going to be an interesting contrast to from the first game.
Yeah, well, that leads us. I mean, that's pretty much the wrap up for the episode. But I mean, the question obviously is going to be asked: what's next? Now you should have
put that as a poll. Did Joel do the right thing? Yes or no?
I should. I mean, I still could. There's, I'll put it on a poll real quick. I mean,
yeah, that's a good question. Yeah. So, what do you all think? Did Joel do the right thing? Let us know in the comments what you would have done. I don't know.
Should Joel have told Ellie the truth? And I managed to type it without making any stupid spelling errors. Hey, there it is. It's in the poll for anybody watching. So
all right,
let us know what you guys think. But that leads to the obvious question of what's next. Now, this by and large is based on the first game.
Yes.
We do have the second game we can draw off of creatively. And some crazy things happen in that game. For those of you who don't know. Especially in the beginning of the game, very early in the game. So I mean, they did say something that the creators of this series said something in the last week or so that's pretty interesting. Is they said that they are going to split the second game, or what they're going to draw from the second game as their major plot points, into 2 different seasons. So it's going to take 2 seasons to play out the second game. Yeah. Now, there are a couple of things that stand out for me for this. Number one is they are, from what I hear, they're in development on a third game. I keep hearing this. Nobody's confirmed anything, but the popularity of the show, it's actually something that's been rumored for a long, long time anyway, even before news of the show even happened. That they were wanting to make a third game. So,
and this now gives you that time to do it with this juggernaut of this is now your.
So now, hopefully, by the time you finish the third season, you've got that third game that has already been out for a year,
and now you can do.
And now you can do a 4th season. But
I said this is lining up perfectly, and I hope to God that's how it happens.
Yeah, but with the streaming services, they're a lot different than the good old-fashioned television channels, television networks. They don't go much more than 3 or 4 seasons with anything anymore. I mean, if you look at something like Stranger Things, it's a rarity to go more than 3 seasons. Even the really successful shows, they're ending after season 3 or 4. They just don't go that far.
That's why everybody needs an Eddie Munson. That's
because it's just the way the TV shows work. It's not anybody. It's just what happens as a show goes on longer. It gets more expensive. The talent, if it's successful, the actors in the show get other offers to do other things. They get offered a lot more money to do other things. It's hard to turn down $10 million to do a Marvel movie or whatever. to make $100,000 an episode to come back and do, Last of Us or whatever. But yeah, there's some things, but also one of the things they were quoted as saying is that they were excited about the changes that were made from the game to what they plan on doing in the next 2 or 3 seasons.
Ooh.
And I was like, there's one significant thing. I don't really want to spoil it that happens in the second game, early in the second game.
But that is kind of the whole point of the game. So I would hope.
And because I can't really ask some of these questions without spoiling it. For those of you who don't know, who haven't played the second game,
brace yourselves.
Yeah, spoiler alert for those of you who don't know. Again, we're a spoiler-heavy channel. I mean, the short reviews are one thing, but I'm going to tell you guys something. Early on in the second game, Joel dies.
Very brutally.
Very significantly. Now,
yes.
I'll go back and I'll put this picture up again because Jeremy kind of alluded to it earlier. This doctor, while he didn't last very long in the show, is kind of an important character to one of these people. And one of these people is, what's her name? Is it Emma?
Abby.
Abby. Who is apparently the daughter of the doctor. Yes. Now, you notice that Joel left both these nurses that you can see on your screen on your right side, left them alive and killed the doctor.
Yes.
Now, apparently, in the video game, this, I don't know if this is going to be one of the changes that they make going into whatever comes next, season 2 and 3. But in the video game, Joel is beaten to death by Abby for killing her father. And that becomes a serious point of contention, obviously, between her and Ellie. Yeah. And that's what a lot of the game is centered around.
Because she also did this about 3 feet from Ellie's face. Like, she Tiger Woods the shit out of Joel's skull. Like, they held Ellie down and made her, like, watch this. And I'm like, yeah. Now, if you can imagine the amount of rage, I'm with Ellie, and I'm like, I think the line was, I'm going to fucking kill you. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to kill you, bitch. You better hope I don't get a hold of you.
Well, that leads me to my question, though, is what are they going to change? Because I heard John Campia talking about it earlier. He said that it makes sense to him anyway, that since they're splitting the second game up over the course of 2 seasons, like you could have him, however he's going to meet his end, he could die towards the end of season 2. And season 3 would cover a lot of Ellie versus Abby. A lot of Ellie versus Abby. And I was like, I get that. That makes sense. But Pedro Pascal is a god right now. It's like, do you really? I mean,
yes.
It's not like there's an ensemble cast for this show to ride on. This entire show rides pretty much on the shoulders of Ellie and Joel. And if you take one of those people out of the equation, it really changes the dynamic in a way that, in my mind, would be very, very hard to deal with. I mean, what do you think? Is that something they could possibly do?
Well, here's kind of how I would see it. It is still early in I almost said first game. It's early in the second game that, Joel does end up dying. Again, it's the same, like, actions have consequences. And it's something that would happen so quick that, again, you're not even thinking about. Joel goes in there and kills this doctor. And I guess I'll spoil it for everybody. I think it was the nurse in the middle of that shot. The nurse in the middle there in the back was actually the person who played Abby in the video game. So it's kind of haha funny. If you know, that's funny that she's in this scene in particular. Obviously, right there. I think it's the one in the very back. I don't obviously think that she's going to be Abby in the, I don't think it's going to be that. I'm like, no, Abby's still pretty young at this. Well, not young, but young enough at this point. And I thought it was funny that Joel does leave the two of them alive. I'm like, damn, Joel, you're a better man than me. I killed the nurses in the game. I'm sorry. I straight up killed them too. They were cowering in the corner, pleading for their life, and I shot them in the fucking head. I'm sorry. Nobody lives, all right? Nobody walks out of here but me and her. See, I was in the tunnel vision too. But yeah, and it's obviously that's the whole, because you see this new woman, you're like, who the hell is this? Excuse me, I know it's a game. I know there's things that they take out, but there is some time. It's like, it wouldn't be wise to just, people are going to shy away from it. Cause like, if you don't know, and if that's the way they decide to take this second season by killing Joel off, it's like, you probably don't want to do it in the first episode. You might want to wait. There is some time where it sets up Abby. It sets up them, there's a setup of like, now you see them in Jackson after 5 years, you have Ellie who has her own little house now. out, somewhere in the town. You have her relationship with Dina now that has been come to fruition. And of course, there's always bigots in the world. You always got to have that one asshole who just doesn't like it. And that's where you at least get Joel to come in and, he tells him to step the hell out. Like, get out of here, dude. He's still that very protective father figure over her. And I'll go ahead and spoil this. It's like there is even some friction between them in that scene. She even kind of goes like, what the hell did you do that for? Like, I can take care of myself. And you can tell it's that parent override where he's like, you know what? I understand. You're right. And walks away. And you kind of see her kind of go like she feels bad for having yelled at him, but when he's just trying to protect her. But yeah. So maybe give it like an episode or two, but that is the whole. I know Tech Center said it's like, oh, it's like when Walking Dead let Rick go. It's like, yeah, it is weird, but also remember Fear the Walking Dead did that, and the mom didn't die. I'm like, yeah, but that sets off that's your whole narrative. And now this narrative is about revenge, both from Ellie and Abby's perspective. We understand why Abby's doing this. We understand why now Ellie is going to do this. And the whole point, now I think this would work better in a show. Because I already made the joke. I'm like, well, they're going to do 2 seasons of the second game. I'm like, wow, it'd be a real shame if you played through the entire game as one person, then you just hard stopped and then played it all over again as the other person. Wouldn't that really suck? I'm like, oh, the game doesn't do that. No, that's right. That would be dumb. So I'm like, I feel like you could still tell this narrative. It's different playing it and having to go through 5-6 hours playing with one person and having to just stop and then now play as the other person. It's annoying. But seeing it in a show format would probably translate better. You're seeing the two of them struggle with revenge. And as we know, you're seeking revenge, you dig 2 graves. Because it's not going to make you feel better. It's not going to bring back the person you lost. You guys are throwing punches at the air and at each other, but, at nothing. So, there you go. Spoiler review for the second game. You're welcome.
I realized very early on. I mean, by the time we got to the end of like episode 4, at least halfway through ish. By the time we got to that point, I already had in my head. I'm like, wherever this thing goes, wherever it ends, when it ends, Joel's gonna die.
Eventually, yes.
I feel like that's the best. I mean, narratively, I feel like that's the best ending for the character. It's like I thought the same thing about Jack Bauer. I love the TV show 24. It's one of my favorite TV shows of all time. Mm-hmm. And I remember thinking to myself, Jack Bauer should die. Because, I mean, from the way that the first season ended, I was kind of like, that seems to be like the only fitting ending for this character. And I think it's the only fitting ending to Joel's character. So I think the biggest question is going to be when. Furthermore, and I'm gonna put this out there right now. Big prediction for how this whole thing ends. I think Joel and Ellie both die.
At the end of it all, yeah, I'm sure.
I think that Joel dies at some point, however it's going to happen in the show anyway, whether it's going to be at the hands of Abby or some raider or whatever. So he's going to die somehow, either in the way it happens in the game or protecting Ellie, or maybe even his brother. Who knows? But Tommy is pretty important. I also think that maybe at some point Ellie is just going to be like, you know what, I've lost Joel. Who knows what else she's going to lose? She's lost Riley. She's lost Tess. She never knew her mom. She does. She probably is kind of just tired of living in this world anyway. She's like, you know what? If my death is really what can save everybody from this bullshit, then maybe I'll just lay down and take it. Maybe I'll let them pull my brain out, grow whatever they need to grow on my brain, and stop this madness from being a problem anymore. I really now there is no evidence of this. Obviously, I haven't played the game as much as you do. I don't know where Ellie's at in her mind or in this world right now in the game. But I feel like that once this series ends, I don't know how it's going to end in the game. I'm not going to make that prediction because I haven't played the game as much as you. But I feel like at the end of this series, she's probably going to be like, you know what? Go ahead and pull my brain out, grow whatever you need to grow on it, and stop this bullshit. Because who knows who she's going to lose at that point? I don't know, and don't spoil it for anybody. But I don't know what happens to Dina.
I'm like, I can tell you, like,
I don't know what happens to her.
You're on the right track.
I know. Yeah. I mean, I feel like that her life is going to end up kind of like Joel's, where it's going to be just a life of one loss after another. Because who really survives that long, or at least that well, in a situation like what this world finds itself in? So maybe it's getting to the point where she's like, you know what? Maybe, because I know she's going to learn the truth, what Joel didn't tell her at some point. I mean, that's kind of obvious. How she learns it is going to be however they write it. I just hope it's good. But I really do think that at some point she's going to be like, you know what? The only way to stop all this chaos is to let somebody pull my brain out and do what they got to do. And that's going to be her ultimate sacrifice in the end. Again, I don't know where she's at in the game. I don't know if the potential third game is going to be the last game or what, but I feel like that's kind of where it's all headed. Joel's going to die because, he dies in the game. And I think it's a fitting end for his character anyway. And I do believe that at one point, Ellie's going to be like, you know what? Take my brain. I just, if I can end all this for everybody else, then take my brain. I'll do what I have to do to end all this.
It's been 5 years. You have killed the leader of the Fireflies. There's no that I only played the second game once. There is a new group, which is the group that Abby's a part of. I guess kind of akin to the Fireflies, but not in the same. They seem more like kind of like militant, kind of like Fedra in a way. Just this kind of sect of people that live over here in like the western side of the country, over in like Seattle. But there's not really any Fireflies, so it's like I don't know who's gonna do this for her. I mean, unless there's someone like Tommy seems to have a pretty good setup, and I mean, I'm not gonna lie, there is the amount of people that are in Abby's group. There's bound to be somebody that could, but that'd be something that'd be down the road. And yeah, I don't want to ruin what happens at the end of the second game. I don't know. I feel, and there are flashbacks. It's not like we're going to see Pedro Pascal for, a few minutes of an episode and have him watch his skull get caved in. It's like, no, there's still backstory. Like you said, we're going to have that conversation about what he told her 5 years ago, or what he lied to her about 5 years ago, or her finding out. And then there's other, of course, because you have to keep tugging at her heartstrings. There's other tidbits of like their life together over these past 5 years in Jackson. Specifically like when Joel takes her to the museum for her birthday, nice moments like that, moments where they're just out having a good time in nature. And of course, they got to be a dick and whoop, push each other in the river because it's funny. So it's not like he won't be there. He can still film these flashback scenes to probably give more weight again to, unfortunately, like Ellie's going to be in this tunnel vision of revenge, and so is Abby. So, and those two are going to come to blows with each other. Believe me, more than once.
Yeah, but I don't know. We'll be back probably next Tuesday to give our kind of final breakdown of this season as a whole. We'll talk about how it compared to the game, what spots they were really, really close. There were several. What spots were big time deviations, and there were a few. And just kind of like overall the characters, the plot, and how the whole thing went. But overall a fantastic ending to a fantastic season of the show. Again, I only played the game a few times. I mean, I was familiar enough with the story, but what really gets me sucked into this whole thing is the characters for one, the writing for another, and just the overall performance of Pedro Pascal and what's her name, Bella Ramsey. Yeah, in these roles. I couldn't have cast this any better myself. These two have carried this show in a fantastic way. I'm really excited as to what season two and 3 are going to bring. I'm really tempted to maybe get a hold of part 2 and play through it to see how it all goes, but I'm not much of a gamer. I don't really have time to game like that anymore. So I'm just going to lean on Jeremy.
I've literally got it. It's right there. I can see it in that chair. It's right there. If you want to borrow it.
I'll probably just lean on Jeremy for some of the ins and outs as we get close to eventually what we're going to get from season 2. But overall a fantastic show. I give it an A, a solid A. I can't really knock any of it. Again, I kind of get what American Werewolf New Jersey was saying about how at times there wasn't enough action. Don't get me wrong, I love the dialogue, I love the character work, but I did at some point wanted to see a little bit more. I think that's maybe the one thing The Walking Dead has over the show pretty clearly is that they probably balanced a little bit more of the action in with the dramatic stuff. But
it is only season 1, to be fair.
Yeah, it is only season 1. So I mean, who knows where it's going to go from here? But again, just fantastic work by everybody from top to bottom on this show. I think it's been fantastic.
And you know what? If you want more zombie kill and you want more stuff like that, go play the game. Seriously, that's the big sell. It's like, oh well, you get curious, like, what's the game like? I mean, if you want to go do it for yourself. It's one of those games
that is tremendously thematic.
Yeah,
I mean, I mean, video games did something insane when they started to play out like movies.
Yeah,
you know,
like
Last
you're
of Us,
in it.
some of this
Yeah,
other stuff. They give you those cinematic pieces, those 4 or 5 minute pieces where they're playing like a movie. You're just watching it to get you drawn in like a movie. And I mean, how cool would it be if you could watch a movie like a James Bond and then maybe take control of the character for 5 minutes and do the shit that he needs to do, and then hear him talking to Q, hear him talking to, you know, whatever bad guy of the movie, to get that dialogue, and then James Bond's like, I'm gonna go do this. Then you take over control of the character and go do that for Bond. I mean, it's that the thematic nature of some of these video games is fantastic, and this is one of the ones that just really hit a home run. On that note, is like the way it gets people sucked into the story, into the characters.
And really, it's very accessible, especially even now. Like I would even say like this new current gen, I think it's even probably on last gen remake of the first game. It's like there's a story mode, a story difficulty where it's like you're not trying to do combat, you're not trying to, you know, 360 no scope a clicker, you know, on permadeath speed run, you know, which you can do, which is cool. There is permadeath and speed running, which is really cool. But there's it's like a super easy, super accessible mode. You can turn on like the aim lock. You just aim all, and it'll go right to the clicker or right to the guy trying to blow your head off. So it's like you can still experience it, and you can still have the basic, you know, you understand what to do. Move here, do this, talk to this person, shoot this guy. Scene, cinematic, you know, then move to the next one. So anybody can play this game, and I would highly recommend, if you haven't done it, like play it for yourself, or like, you know, watch somebody play it.
Yeah, like
I couldn't imagine who
across all platforms.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, and on top of that, it's like, even if you're not a big gamer but you want to see how it plays out, there's so many game clips on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, go find a couple of YouTubers, because I would imagine that streaming of this game has seen a bit of an increase.
Yeah, and the sales of the game have gone through the roof.
Sales of the game have gone up, so there's probably plenty of people that are actually playing The Last of Us right now, either the first or the second one, on YouTube or Twitch or whatever platform you like to watch. So kind of figure out where they're at with that. But yeah, again, just a fantastic season of fantastic television. And let's see, I asked somebody to break the tie in the poll, and they did. I'll go ahead and the poll now. It's I expected it to be close, because I mean, like I said, who who's right, who's wrong? I mean, you want to protect her, but you want to be honest with her. How do you do it? So
man, when I voted no, it was still in the minority.
Yeah, one vote was the difference. So one vote was the difference. So out of 7 votes, 6 of you said, I'm sorry, out of 7 votes, 3 of you said yes, that he should have told Ellie the truth, and 4 of you said no, that he should not have told Ellie the truth. So no. So you got 57%, the ever so small majority agreed with him as to not tell her.
It was Rachel. Nice.
Interesting.
Thanks.
Rachel. Thanks, Rachel. I figured Rachel was one of the first ones to vote. But like I said, it's what's the wrong answer? What's the right answer? It's hard to know. It's really hard to know. It really just kind of it really comes down to, I mean, there really isn't one ultimately, or maybe they're both wrong.
When you have a complex, dynamic, kind of seemingly simple question like we just asked, like, you know, should you or not, or should you not? It's like, my God, you got to sit down and think about like the complexities of it. And again, that's what makes it great. And that's why, again, people have been talking about this for the last 10 years. And I always thought, like, yeah, this would make a great movie. I'd love to see this as a show or something, you know, because the first time I played it 10 years ago, I mean, it held a special place to me. It was the first PlayStation 3 game I ever had. I even got a PS3 for it for that reason. I saw the trailer and I was like, I don't know what this is, but I love it. Like, I love post-apocalyptic. This looks awesome, you know. And it was the first game I ever actually played online. Like, there was multiplayer in this game, you know, 2 small teams of 5, and you're shooting at each other across a map with several locations of the game. It was a big deal for me, and it still is now.
Yeah, but a fantastic show, one that I've enjoyed from start to finish. I love the 3rd episode, the great character work there between the Frank and Bill characters. I love the growth of the relationship between Ellie and Joel. I also, there was great setup done for what's coming next. I mean, obviously we're going to see more Jackson. You know, obviously we're going to see some ramifications for Joel's mind-boggling murderous rampage in this last episode. it does set up for a lot of crazy stuff that is going to come in the future of the show. And again, I've heard Pedro Pascal say that we're going to be getting season 2 of this sooner than we think. So I would imagine that he's, because obviously he's done with season 3 of The Mandalorian. It's airing right now. I think he said he's got like one other project that he's going to go that he's hoping to get back on set to start filming season 2 of Last of Us. So hopefully it won't be too long before we get to see Ellie and Joel back in the saddle, figuring out how to navigate the crazy world of cordyceps.
I hope we get some like rendition of Jackson by Johnny Cash and June Carter, just for the fact that that's the name of the town. Like, oh god, that'd be awesome.
But it's been a fun ride breaking all this down with my good friend Jeremy with American Werewolf New Jersey when he's been able to join us, of course. But I'm again really excited about what this season gave us. Really excited about what's coming, and obviously I thank all of you for coming and hanging out with us. We broke down all these 9 episodes. Don't forget to show some love to everybody in the description below. All the great movie YouTubers down there, things like that. AJ popped in right at the end. What's going on, AJ? Right. And obviously, where can the folks at home find you, my man, Jeremy?
Yeah, well, I think you said it earlier. It's that name right there. Look how meta that is. I'm pointing at it. It's on that across every platform. So obviously, I'm. This is called The Harsh Truth. That's not me. I am a part of it. I already messed up the Spaceballs joke. Damn it. There's no coming back from that. That's all right. So I'm here on Tuesdays, Thursdays, days that end in Y. Whenever and whatever we're reviewing, which now unfortunately this comes to a close, but you know what? It doesn't have to be over, because as I so subtly mentioned earlier, if you want to watch someone play the game, like I will gladly, now having this medium of of the story in mind, I'm going to give the first game a run through, and if you've only seen the show and now you see this, you're gonna be amazed at how close it actually was. And it's still, like I said, to me, having played the game and then now watching the show, it still hit me just as hard. Like both of them do. So if you want to come experience that ride, we're like Frank said, we're gonna saddle up, take that horse, and hopefully it doesn't get shot. We're also doing Mandalorian, and March is gonna be an insane month for some movies. We got John Wick, as we've mentioned several times, so there's gonna be more gunfire coming. Instead of over a 14-year-old girl, it's over a dog, or God knows what else at this point. D&D comes out, and also we still have Scream 6 coming up. There's a lot to talk about that, and that I'm sure will be a great show.
That's what's coming up on Thursday. So
I have a YouTube. That's where the Last of Us will be for me. I have Twitch, but I have other things and I work for Twitch, since Twitch is live, so that's different. Like I've said, I keep trying not to make the stupid pun, but I think Ellie would be proud of me if I try to say I'm going to find a way to roll D&D into Skyrim or maybe even Fallout. I have a way, and just trust the process. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, as for me, like I said, you're gonna see us back here on Thursday breaking down Scream 6. Quite a movie. Don't forget our relatively short review that Rachel, Jeremy, and I did as we were walking out of the theater from seeing that over the weekend is up now. You can check that out. That's non-spoilery. But Thursday will be all the good spoilery discussions. We're gonna tell you who all the killers are. We're going to tell you everything that went.
Everyone's a suspect.
Everyone's a suspect. Everybody's the killer. Just everybody kills everybody else. That's the movie.
Yeah, there you go.
We'll be back for that. I'm going to have to figure out a time where we can break down this week's episode of The Mandalorian, because I wanted Thursday to be all about Scream, but we may just break that down 2 episodes next week. I'm not sure yet. I'll work on that if we get done here. But thanks to all of you who came and hung out. I very much appreciate it. Don't forget, you can find me on Twitter right there as well. I may even go online and do some gaming later. I'm not 100% sure. Maybe I'll play some Call of Duty or some Fortnite. Maybe I'll just play some golf. I don't know. I got it in my head. I have it in my head that I want to do a little more gaming, but it's not really my thing.
You've always got me.
I actually moved my, believe it or not, my PlayStation in here. It's sitting next to me right now, so I can maybe try to do some gaming and stuff. So maybe I'll do that. I don't know.
Hey, you know what? I don't know why you and I don't just do that together, or do it on something. I don't know.
We could. I mean, I tend to, right now I'm working a lot of nights. I know you're home at nights, but I don't know. We'll figure something out.
To be fair, like, you have me on here. I'm like, I guess I could have you on with me. That'd be more fair.
Yeah, that's I don't know. There's content coming from us somewhere. Just keep an eye out. Follow both me and Jeremy. We'll put it out there for you. And again, a great ride. Thank you so much to the creators of the show for creating something fantastic. I love the show. I can't wait for what season 2 is going to bring. And again, maybe we should break down. It's only like 5 episodes. Maybe we should do in the interim. Maybe we should break down Chernobyl. Because I know Cora has been interested in watching it. I don't know if you've seen it or not.
I have not yet. Now that I have HBO, it's in my watch list, and I've heard nothing but good things from you. And again, if it's Craig Mazin, who I've not seen anything else of,
you're gonna see some serious tonal, like just the color.
I imagine
how dark it is.
Yeah,
the situation you're talking about, 80s Russia, still behind the Iron Curtain. It's this again, very similar visuals, but also still very tense. Very, and very real life. I mean,
because that's a real thing.
Yeah, it's like we're talking about mushrooms taking over people that can't really happen. This is something that actually happened in history. Yeah, mushroom clouds that irradiated a good part of Europe. So yeah, it's a fantastic show.
And you know what?
It starts off with a bang and ends very crazy. It's a fantastic show.
So is Russia Joel? Should they maybe have told people about this? Because they were kind of like, nope, nothing happened. Nothing happened, guys.
We'll put a poll in chat for that. should Russia have told anybody that Chernobyl exploded? Like, nobody knew already.
It's a little harder to hide the fact that some radiation just swept into the next fucking country, rather than there's no internet, no phones, no nothing. I massacred a hospital, and you'll never know about it. So,
but yeah, once again, thanks to all of you who came and hung out with us. We very much appreciate it. Mandalorian's still going to be doing those breakdowns, so come check those out as well, as long as whatever news stories, whether reviews we got coming up. We got a few. We've got Shazam comes out this weekend. We're gonna find some time to at least talk about that. It's gonna be like I've been saying for a while. The next couple of years is going to be really, really full of reviews and stuff like that. All the stuff that is all coming out now. So we're gonna have a busy couple of years in movies and television shows. It's gonna be a lot of fun. But thank you guys very much for coming out with us. We very much appreciate you. We'll see you next time. Adios.